This week, we are very pleased to have Terry Holman from Zebulon Wealth Advisory here to talk to us about the way they would recommend that you set up a way to protect your family's assets and wealth through any number of strategies, but usually through living trust. Terry, we really appreciate your being here. Before we turn it over to you, let you introduce yourself. I'd like my colleague, Clint Lausch, to give us the normal housekeeping.
Thanks, Tim. Hey, everybody. As usual, I know see a lot of familiar names in the chat area, and as you know, all of these are going to be recorded. And if you want to watch this recording or any past recordings, you can go to the Montessori Foundation YouTube page. Geez, Tim, I'm not sure how many videos we have there now, but it's probably over 50, 60 of these videos. So tons of great content like what you're going to experience today. So this will live there about 24 hours after today's session. As we'll certainly have time for Q&A. Feel free to ask any questions as we're going through. I'll be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. So Terry, if I see something that's pertinent based on what you're talking about, I might shoot that your way, or certainly at the end, we'll try to go through and answer everybody's questions. So with that being said, Tim and Terry, I'll turn it over to you. We'll go behind the scenes here and keep an eye on the chat.
Thank you. All right. Well, Terry, I met you on LinkedIn. You reached out to me, and I've been very pleased to become your acquaintance and your client. I'm glad you agreed to be on this show. You were on a few weeks ago with a group of childcare owners, and I figured independent school leaders might find what you have to say valuable too. So, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. All right, why don't we get started? Again, what we want to do today is we're going to talk about estate planning. And the reason that estate planning is important is, a lot of people spend a lot of time accumulating assets, planning on retirement, passing the things on to the children, but sometimes they don't build the house foundation properly, meaning that they didn't make sure that everything was in place in case something happens. We all think everything's going to go great, but what estate planning is when something doesn't go right, and then things that have got to be handled. So first of all, this is my smiley face right here. I've been in the business for 42 years, starting off as a stockbroker, worked my way all the way up. I love financial planning. I love working with clients. We primarily focus in tax mitigation, helping people save taxes, money, wealth management. But we do believe that this is the first thing that you need to, take care of. I have a team that, are partners. One is my son-in-law, Bradley. Bradley, 30 years in the business. And my job is, let's compare it to medical. I'm sort of like the surgeon. I've been doing this for a long time. I come in, I take all the phone calls, understand what the clients are doing, and then sort of lay out what we need to do going forward. Bradley steps in, and Bradley takes it from there. Bradley has a master's of financial planning from University of Georgia. And so he takes care of, making sure that once we've laid out what they do is putting all the pieces together, meeting with the clients, bringing in the support people that we need. This is my daughter, Heather, married to Bradley, and she kind of considers herself the client portal. That was her terminology, and that her job is servicing the clients and then assisting with Bradley to make sure everything is moving forward. So that's our team. Okay, part of our team. I'm going to show you some more in just a few minutes. So, there's a word we're going to talk about, a revocable trust today, an irrevocable trust. So I've been doing this. People don't quite know what a trust is, or that the trust is just for the ultra wealthy, but that's not the case. So I wanted to back up just a little bit, if you don't mind, and explain to you and how a trust is and try to put it in context. All right, example, you have a car. When you have a car, you have a title. And in that title has your name on it. And that says, I own this car. And like, I can't go sell your car. Only you can sell your car because you have title. Same thing with a house. In a house, you have a deed. And on that deed, it says who owns the house. And in that deed, you're the one that has all the rights to, what you want to do with that house and selling it. Now, we're going to look at different types of accounting. Now, like over here, if you look at, this is a Schwab new account form. If we're Schwab reps, is if we wanted to open up an account, let's just say an individual account, like right here, all right? Individual account, when you open it up, you'd put it in your name, and in that account with, your funds or whatever in it is in your name. You have control. Now, go the next step over is IRAs. IRAs are different. Step up a little bit. You do not own your IRA. The trust owns your IRA. So if you were to look at your Charles Schwab account, it will say Charles Schwab for the benefit of, Terry Holman. So you have a trustee, because it has to be with a trust that IRS says, hey, any money you put in here, you get a tax deduction, and any money that earns in here, you do not have to pay taxes on it till it comes out. So that's an IRA. Now, again, on the same form is in the trust department, we're just moving up. The living trust, we're going to talk about the revocable trust first. Revocable trust, it says, instead of putting my individual account in my name, I'm going to put it inside of a living trust, a revocable trust, and it's going to be the Holman Family Trust. In other words, I still control everything, but I have it in a different name for purposes of protection. We're going to talk a little bit why a trust is better than a will. Now, that'll handle about 90% of the people probably on this call. Now, right here, you have irrevocable trust. Irrevocable for the other 10% are people that have a lot of different assets, but more importantly, they're in a business or, where they're worried about being sued or, people taking their assets. And so they want to make sure that they have everything protected. I've used it, and I'll give you an example where we have someone, a family member, that they wanted to protect mom's assets from the rest of the family. So we had to put it in irrevocable trust so that she could have a lifetime income and no one else could get to it. But again, also we use irrevocable trust a lot of time where you got handicapped children or something of that nature, or you have, tremendous liability out there. Again, the revocable trust we do through Epic. If we have to get into the irrevocable trust, it's a lot more complicated, and we have to bring in a tax attorney because it's at a different level. Okay. In here, what we're going to try to do is try to talk about the difference between a will and a living trust. We're going to, what happens if there's no plan in place? And what's funny, you have a plan in place, whatever state you live in. So if you die what is called intestate, meaning I don't have a will, then what happens, you do have a will, but the courts determine how your assets are going to be planned. So you have a plan, but you have no control of it. The kids have no control over it. The judge overseeing it makes all the rules and passes it out. So that's why we think you should have, some sort of plan to make sure assets are going where you want to go. We're going to talk about 8 different situations out here. I'm going to hit them lightly because this is an overview and in here. And then we'll want to somehow, Heather, put our email address in here or something down at some point, okay? And then here we're going to talk about probate, how it works for the family. Probate basically is where you go to court and you put all your assets out there, and the probate court, says, "Up, okay, we agree with this, and yes, Sam gets this, and Aunt Hattie gets that." That's what probate is. And there's a fee to that we can talk about, okay? We're going to talk about the taxes and the estate planning and how to protect, yourself against lawsuits, divorces, and, spendthrift, okay? Now, right here, I'm going to let you, most of these people and I'm not going to go through them all because of time, but if you look at these are people that that were very famous and fairly wealthy. But they died without doing any kind of estate planning. An example, like Martin Luther King up to the left, his was tied up for about 50 years. And the attorneys, they came out the winners. They made a ton of money as the family was fighting over everything. Now, my understanding, it was finally settled, but for a whole lot less than what it started with. Okay. So again, these are people that more than can afford it, but didn't. And then their families paid the price. Okay. Now, what we find out is there's about 40% of the people out there in the country have wills. And then there's only about 17% of the people have trust. And what we find is people just don't understand it. They put it in their head that you've got to be ultra wealthy to afford a trust. And when I get to the end of this, you're going to say, that's all that a trust costs. You're going to be really surprised, okay? In here, so what we want to do is nearly half of the people out there, again, believe that you have to be ultra rich. 25% of the people out there have a family member somewhere that died without their wills or any kind of trust, and could talk about the nightmares that are out there that happen. Simple things like, the gentleman died and his next door neighbor, his best friend, and the best friend said, look, when I die, you can have my pickup truck. Well, he never wrote that down anywhere. And so when it passed out, there got like a good big battle with the wife, like, hey, he said I could have the pickup truck. Little things, silly like that, okay? Or like, hey, mom said I could have the ring, or mom said I could have that piece of furniture. So what a trust is for is to make sure that everything is going to go where you want it to go and to whom you want it to go and what is the timing of that, okay? Now, in here, we again have seen some really, I've been doing this for a long time, we have seen that this thing can get nasty, if you don't understand how it works. I use this one case that happened to me. I had a lady came in with her oldest daughter and son-in-law, and the husband had died and they'd sold some property. So she had a decent amount of money. Well, the daughter said, look, I need to make sure mom, has lifetime income, but that my sister and her husband can't get to the money. And so we set up a irrevocable trust, put the money in, set her up for a lifetime income she couldn't outlive. So she was happy as a lark. Well, then about 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in as a stockbroker, sitting in my office, and Terry, you got some people up here to see you up front. Well, okay, I didn't have any appointments set. And they came in, and it was very quick. That why did you put my mother's money somewhere where we can't get to it? It's my mom's money. I said, well, this is what your mom wanted. I'll cut the story short. We had to bring security in to get these people out. They were ranting and raving. But if we had not protected the mom, she would have been without anything. Okay. In here, every decision you make has some sort of consequences, and even not making a decision has a consequence. Okay, so that's what we talk about. So what we're trying to do is just show you the importance of making, a few little changes in protecting. Again, we believe in starting at the bottom. We do a lot of tax mitigation, a lot of investment management. But this is what we think we need to do with our clients right off the bat to get everything off on the right foot, okay? And you want to protect you and your family. Again, here's my little ducks, okay? So what we're saying is we just want to help you to get your ducks in a row. Now, I like this saying, my ducks are absolutely not in a row. At this point, I have no idea where my ducks even are. What I mean by that is kind of making a little joke, but I get people coming in and I tell this story. It's a true story. A gentleman was married for a while and ended up getting a divorce, remarried. He's been working the same company forever, and they had a couple of children. So like 20 something years later, he passes away. Well, he had been pouring money into his 401k all of this time. And they had talked about, okay, if something happens, you're going to get my 401k. Well, when he passed away, come to find out, he had never changed the beneficiary on his 401k. So even though they tried to get lawyers and everything else, the court says he had, 20 plus years to change this. And so she ended up getting all the money of the 401k. So that's what I mean by having your ducks in a row. Have you looked at everything? Have you, checked everything to make sure that it is, proper and going where you want it to go? Okay. So you wanted to do that. Most of the time I find that people want to do this. This estate planning is probably one of the things that there's more people procrastinate more than anything because you think, oh, if I do this, I'm gonna die tomorrow. I've had people tell me that, but a lot of people procrastinate because it's like, oh, I'm too young to worry about this, but you're never too young, I promise you. Okay. So there's a lot of way to do that. We call it the living trust, and we're going to talk about that and what happens. Okay. Again, we are hoping you're going to be proactive, not reactive. Unfortunately, when someone passes away, it's too late. They can't sign anything, they can't change anything. So you have to be proactive in this world. This is our team. Okay. That's my smiling face in the center. You see Heather and Bradley down at the bottom. The Rick Bailey is the gentleman that is our tax attorney when we do irrevocable trust, or we get into a lot of heavy business and stuff, we have to bring him in. You got Holly right there. The way this process works, once we get started, if you decide to do it, there'll be a couple of meetings. One of them will be with Holly or Eileen, depending. And they're like paralegals. They'll sit with you. You'll have filled out a questionnaire. And then her job is to spend a good hour or better with you to make sure she's understanding what you want to have done, what assets you want to go where, what assets do you need to have, retitled. Then if you look down to the bottom right, you said Sierra, you'll hear from her in a minute. She's the attorney. So once Holly or Eileen has put everything together, then she packages it, sends it to Sierra. Then there's an appointment with the attorney, and either Holly or Eileen's also on the call. I'm usually on the call, or Bradley. And then she's the one that now understands everything. She packages it, and then she just talks with you to make sure that she understands what you want to have done. And then so she then packages it up. Okay. Now, you go out on the marketplace today, and there are a lot of what we call will and trust, companies that are just, throw them out there. Here's a fee. But what they don't do, and a lot of attorney firms don't do, is called funding. Funding means if you have a house and we want it into trust, a lot of people will sell you the trust, but they don't retitle your house in the name of the trust. They don't move your accounts over into the name of the trust. Part of our fee is, and you'll see that at the end, is that we take care of all of the funding or moving the things over. And when we get through, we've tied a little ribbon around it, and it is a complete trust funded. Okay. This is Sierra, the attorney, and then I want her to speak with you for a second. If we've done the best we can on the volume, so on your computer, if you would, is to make sure that you might want to cut your volume up a little bit, but we've done all that we can do.
Hello, and thank you all for coming today. I am network attorney Sierra Lister, and I will be guiding you through a high-level view of just how our platform is making this often misunderstood subject much more seamless, effective, and comprehensive. The dynamics of what we call our estate plan portfolio follows a very strict legal protocol while also allowing for a client-centric experience using our 90 and 90 formula. We will talk more about that in a few slides, but for now, let's talk about what estate planning really means and why we are all here today. Simply put, an estate plan is everything you own, from IRAs, bank accounts, houses, cars, and investment portfolios, all the way down to your pictures, jewelry, and precious keepsakes. Let's talk about probate. What is probate? Whether you live in New York or California, every jurisdiction in the United States has a probate code. Probate is just the closing of a deceased estate through court supervision. It's traditionally how we've been transferring title of assets and satisfying debts after someone dies. However, there are a lot of avoidable problems that come with probate court. Each jurisdiction's probate code is slightly different, but all probate statutes define and address four main areas: fees, delays, publication, and contest. Each jurisdiction has statutes that address attorney's fees, personal representative's fees, court costs, publication costs, etc. Even though each state is slightly different, in every state these fees and costs are satisfied first from the deceased person's assets, meaning attorneys and the court get paid first before your heirs do. When you die, your personal representative or executor has a finite amount of time to initiate a probate case. Once a petition to probate is filed with the court, an automatic temporary injunction is placed on all of the deceased person's assets for a statutorily determined amount of time. This injunction freezes all the deceased assets so that the court can conduct an inventory of the estate, meaning we have to find all of your property and debts. There's always a minimum amount of time of an injunction, but there's never a cap. Some probate proceedings can last years. Probate is also a court of record, meaning all documents associated with the case proceedings must be on record and available to the public. When you die, your death must be published in a newspaper for consecutive weeks. Your estate pays for that. All probate proceedings are then made available to the public. It used to be that people wanting information about a probate proceeding had to put in some effort. They actually had to go to the courthouse, ask the court clerk to pull the file, and they would stand over you while you leafed through it, but now everything is online. So someone in Arizona can look at the probate proceedings on someone who died in Missouri. Your will is also 100% contestable. It could be something as simple as, Mom said I would get the diamond ring. No, Mom said I could get the diamond ring. These contests are over things that you would never have imagined, like t-shirts and sentimental items. Now, during this time, someone will have to pay for a lot of these things, such as mortgages, utility bills, and a myriad of taxes. It's normally the most trusted and responsible child. The potential family fracturing that occurs because of this can be catastrophic to families for generations to come. We are fighting an uphill battle because most people think a will is enough. Nothing can be further from the truth. If you take anything away from this, understand that a will equals probate court. If you have only a will, you are guaranteeing your family will go through the probate process. The answer is a revocable living trust. So what is a revocable living trust? A trust in its very simplest form is a contract. It's a contract that creates a legal structure. Think of it as a box of protection. It's very similar to how an LLC contract creates a box of protection around the president and CEO of a company. I want you to think of yourself as the president and CEO of your own estate. If you create this box, the next step is to take all the assets and put them into your box so that they are protected while you are alive, and then also after you die. This process is called funding your trust. Most traditional law firms do not fund your trust for you. They hand you the book and give you a list of things you have to fund your trust with. The problem with that is most people don't fund their trust because it's hard, confusing, and life gets in the way. If you die and never funded your trust, all your assets go through probate anyway. We separate ourselves because we do the funding for you. Now that this box that holds all of your assets and accounts, you are still in control of all these assets, and you determine who manages and distributes them after you pass, not the court. Some choose a trustworthy person in their family, some choose a corporate trustee. Either way, a trust is a binding contract that must be followed exactly how you determine. This can preserve the entire value of a estate, instead of letting court blow it on attorney's fees, court-appointed trustees, accountants, newspaper notices, and an array of taxes. Let's talk about a very important part of someone's estate planning and why it's important to pick a professional trustee to do administration. Most clients that we work with have predetermined that a sibling or a child will handle the administration of the estate. What they fail to understand is that this is not like naming someone a godparent. This is a very serious matter that needs to be handled by professionals that administer the estate, with the desires, wishes, and objectives of each client to the letter of the law. This is where we shine. Here you will see that our partnership has real people that assist with real concrete directives that we put into place during your lifetime. As Americans, you have the ability to do what's called jurisdictional shopping, or choice of law. You can determine which state's laws apply to your estate. For that reason, we utilize the most trust-friendly state in the Union, Nevada. Not only is it the most client-centric state, with a proprietary process in mind, they also have codified all the dynamics of our estate plan portfolio platform. If you're interested, we can provide you with an article explaining the top reasons why Nevada is the #1 state to domicile your estate. I'm going to give you some celebrity examples. Celebrities are just like us. They procrastinate. All of these celebrities were pushed into the pool. Did you know that MLK's estate took 50 years to settle? All of them had lawyers pushing them to complete their estate plan, but just like all humans, they procrastinated. Don't be like these celebrities. Don't procrastinate and get pushed in the pool without a plan in place. The good news is that proper estate planning can address all of these scenarios. Let's talk specifically about how our 90 and 90 formula addresses this entire presentation. We leverage all the very best technology and processes to take our clients through the process and get 90% of their estate plan done in 90 minutes or less. Now you may be thinking, what about the other 10%? Well, the other 10% is that one constant that everyone in the room will be dealing with for the rest of our lives called change. The genius of our process and platform is that when changes occur, we will be able to make any updates, modification, or changes in real time for the rest of your life. So, which side do you want to be on? Because at the end of the day, we all just have two options when our time on earth is over. The first option is that chaos will ensue during an already painful and hectic time. Or the second option, a seamless and cohesive plan has been put into place to take unnecessary burdens off of your loved ones. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, good. Sierra is very good at this. And again, I've already gone over some of it, but we like to repeat it. And again, she is the attorney. She's licensed in all 50 states. All right, this is the trust we talked about. Again, what the trust is sometimes you just don't have family members that you feel comfortable with, may not be a family member. So we offer this service as part of it that could be a trustee. A lot of times you see this if there's a couple and you've got handicapped children that you need to make sure that they're taken care of for the rest of life. This is where you use a trust company like this. I want to go through very quickly a few scenarios in here. What this is we're going to talk about why you need the trust and to help you. Again, you're in a car accident. You're in a car accident and they take you to the hospital and again, no spouse, or it could be the mom or whatever, and you get to the hospital and there needs to be some decisions made, for the person. What happens is when you get there, no one can make any medical decisions because they don't have, any piece of paper that says I have the authority, to step in for my mom, or for my wife or whatever. Right? In the part of your documents, what you get is called a medical power of attorney. It basically gives you the right to help step in and for your spouse to help make those decisions. Okay. And again, for any type of thing, again, I'm in a seniors adult Sunday school. And I was a Sunday school teacher for 35 years and finally, started traveling more. But I am, our class goes from like 68 to 84. And we've had probably 5 couples and people that have ended up in assisted living because of some of the, dementia, different things. Well, luckily their family had put together what they needed to be able to help their family because they could not make decisions. Okay. And so you need the power, the medical power of attorney. And if you've been to any other hospital for surgery or anything, just had my knee replaced, okay, and they want the advanced medical directive. And that's basically the, bluntly, like, the plug, if you plugged in or unplugged, we've had a friend of ours, my very best friend, that he had this in there and he did not want to be, if he was classified as a vegetable, his advanced medical directive said, hey, I don't want to be, just a burden to everybody. So the hospitals usually ask for that. So that is included in your trust documents. Okay. So the question, is that a concern? Again, I hope you're writing down yes or no. Okay. And so that would be one. The next one, we see this all the time in my 42 years. It's like, hey, there's one spouse has passed away, and let's say make it the mom is at home, have a son, and say, look, son, I'm going to put you on my checking account. I'm going to put you on my mortgage. I'm going to put you on all of my accounts. Well, the problem for that is multiple. One, once you put your son, I'm just using a son or a daughter, on your checking account, then their names own it, and they basically have access to 50% of the assets. So if your son goes through a divorce and the other side's attorney finds that out, then they can come in and take 50% of mom's assets. It's the same thing with a lawsuit. Something happens, makes a mistake, hits somebody with a car, then if those names are on the account, then they can come get that. If your son has a bad business dealing, something happens, they have to file for bankruptcy, well, your name's on all of her checking accounts and all, then what can happen that they, could come in and take those. To avoid all of that, what we need is called a financial power of attorney, opposed to joint tendency. What a financial power of attorney, it gives you all those rights. As mom has said, if something happens to me, my son can take this thing to the bank and say, hey, I have the right to pull money from my mom's account and do other things with it, or sell her house. That is very key. As your parents are getting older, okay, you want to be able to have that. But I had a friend that one day was healthy as a horse, next getting in the shower, had a stroke in the brain and never spoke again. Thank goodness for the financial power of attorney, so that she had access to the monies that she could use to take care of him. So is that a concern? Again, that is included in our documents. So the scenario 3 is a little bit different. You have a mom, okay, and what happens is she has, let's say, an IRA. And in that IRA, let's say she has a few $100,000 and she has a daughter, and the mom dies. Well, you got a couple of things that could happen. One is with the laws, when you pass from husband to wife, there's no taxes. But when you go to the next generation, what happens if your daughter's making $100,000 a year and then she gets this $200,000, then it becomes ordinary income. So her income then becomes $300,000 and then bumps her way up in the taxes. And then she's going to give away a bunch of your money that you work so hard for. So that is one thing that you have to worry about with IRAs. Okay. Then the other thing is once she has it in her account, and then she's got the same thing of divorce, lawsuits, bankruptcy, all of those kind of things, then it is open up that money you've worked all your life for could be gone in a very short period of time. So what happens is, how do we do that? Okay. How do we set up a distribution plan out there? There's a thing called an IRA beneficiary trust, is where we would move the IRA into the trust. And again, I'm just going to hit this lightly because there's a lot of moving parts with this, but the main reason is you can move it into that and be able to stretch out the income for a long period of time. Now, we used to have that years ago. Remember, I've been in this 40 plus years. You could have the IRA pass it to the kids, and then they could pass it to their kids. But then with the Secure Act, they came in and said, okay, we want to make sure, the IRS says, we're going to let you defer it, but only for 10 years. We want to make sure we get our money. So what the IRA beneficiary trust does, it allows us to move it and change it so that then we can set up, if your daughter's 30 or 40 years old, that we can, set up a lifetime income that she could have forever, and the account continues to grow. Again, several moving parts in there. But again, what we're talking about is protecting the assets that you've worked all your life for. That's what this is about. How do I protect what I've worked my life for? I want to pass it on to the kids that I love, okay? And make sure that that we're getting, what we want, okay? I want them to get. So we talked about this. The other thing we want to talk about is as time goes on, your life changes when you're doing your estate planning. Meaning, my wife and I have been married 57 years. Okay. When we first got married, we why do we need a will? We don't have anything. But then we have 2 daughters. So when we looked at our wills, we had to redo our wills, and this is way before we were doing trust, is that we made sure that our 2 daughters were taken care of. Well, time goes on between the 2 daughters, we now have 8 grandkids. And so we had to relook at it again and say, okay, how do we, what do we want to do for these 8 grandkids? Then now we have our oldest granddaughter has 2 daughters. So now we have 2 great granddaughters. And so that's what we're talking about now, is how do we now, and what are we going to do for the great grandkids, those kind of things. So an estate planning is not, it moves, it changes, okay? And you've got to understand that you can't do this once, but as your family changes, or, your life gets better, gets worse, assets increase, you have to continue to review that. Another big thing I'm just going to hit lightly right here is like guardianship, like who is going to, if something happens to you, who's going to take care of you? Maybe, physically you as the son or daughter can't do that. You have to work. So what you want to do is make sure that you've got somewhere in there that you've got in your documents the guardianship, opposed to letting a court decide who's going to look after your mom, okay? So again, that's why we need, again, the financial and medical power of attorney needs to be in all the documents. And again, that's what you'll talk to Holly or Eileen about. Again, it's in the questionnaire to jog your memory. Like, oh, okay, I got to think about that. And we find, again, if we send out 10 of these and people all excited, we'll have still 3 or 4 just procrastinate and never get it done. It's just part of what happens, unfortunately. Okay. But those who have a real concern about it follow it through and we get it done. Again, Heather stays in touch with Holly and them, and then making sure that we get the thing all the way done and the ribbon tied around it. Okay. So is that a concern? Here's another case that, again, I just want to throw in there. Husband's in there. He's in a coma. Got $500,000 in his side of his, 401k. You really don't have much other savings. He's going to be in there for a while. But the spouse, cannot get to the money out of the 401k unless she has that financial power of attorney. Okay. Now she's the beneficiary if he dies, but that doesn't give her access. Okay. Then again, this is what about your adult children? Have you thought about that? Do you have, you got kids in their 20s or 30s? Have they taken care of this? Or if you've got some young people, that you might want to make sure that you've got something in place so that you can make decisions for them. Again, the financial and medical power of attorney. That'll be brought up with you to see if you want to do that. Okay. Now, this one is the biggest one right here is minors and grandkids. How do you want them taken care of? Do you, what if it's a handicap? This is the toughest one. This one right here, when we have today, we have handicapped children that are, going to live a long time. The parents are getting older. That's a lot of times where we're having to use the irrevocable trust, funding it, setting up guardianship and who's going to take after them. By far, this is the toughest one, and a lot of decisions have to be made. Okay. So we've been sitting here talking about documents and decisions and all in paperwork, and we're going to file this. Okay. What this one is right here is part of the system that, I think it's one of the best parts. What this is this is you get a portal, and in that portal, what happens is this is how we're going to use it. An example is my wife and I said, been married 57 years. We've got these old photographs. What we want to do is take our photographs, scan them up into the portal, and then we're going to sit down and talk about how we met in our voices, and then talk about our wedding day. And then we're just going to go through and put different things in there about our life and just kind of walk through and have that. Now, Heather, that you met a while ago, she's big into genealogy, and she's found a lot of stuff that we want to upload there. But this is, I don't know if my great grandkids are going to ever listen to my voice again, but we are going to have it up there and saved for different generations. We're very excited about this part right there. Okay. So hopefully we've shown you why the living trust is better. A will is just not enough. And what we need to do is just talk about, the next part is talking about taxes. One of the things that we do a lot of is we work all of this and we work toward, making sure you got enough money for retirement. Well, even at retirement, you still have another enemy. It's called IRS. Okay, we could have all of this set up, but if we, inherit money, let's go back to the daughter. That was an IRA, but what if we had done some tax planning and we had converted that IRA to a Roth IRA? Well, a Roth basically means that the IRS is out of the picture and that the daughter would be getting tax-free income, and that 35% we were going to pay in taxes would not be there. We do a lot of tax planning with clients, trying to get them to where I think you should be is basically at retirement, out of debt, and be where you get tax-free income for the rest of your life. Then have that so that you can pass it on to your family without paying any taxes. Okay. Now, this is, I'm sort of reluctant to try this right now, but we've had trouble with it. But basically, it talks about, it's a probate fee calculator, and I'll just walk through it. It goes in there, and we just pick the company, a state, and we just said Texas. and no particular reason. And then we put a $500,000 estate. And what this system does, it just basically says this is the estimated cost of probate. And it lists all the things that Sierra was talking about. Well, it was $22,000. Now, if you're in California, if you're in New York, it's a whole lot higher. Different states are a little bit lower. But we can give you that fee. But, if we can avoid probate and save that money, that would be our goal, okay, to do that. Now, at the end of this, everybody asks, well, this is all great, but what does it cost? So what this is right here in the package, this is what you get. Now, this is what I suggest to people. Write this down. Get on Google and see what this costs. And you're going to find out that, again, don't forget that we're funding this and overseeing the funding. Don't forget that, Heather, we're getting ready to finish, is that all of these things that you see there are part of the deal for $2,700. And if you go out there and Google all of this, of course, it would not have, the portal with where we can record everything is not in there. But you're going to find that the cost of this is a quarter to a third of what the open marketplace is. But again, when you look at it, make sure that it includes funding. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it. If you have a camera, you have this down at the bottom, QR code. It's got our information in it, according to Heather. Okay. I kind of like typing it in there, but maybe Tim can send it out, But if you'd like to talk more, or I'm going to open this up to some questions. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I cannot answer legal questions. That's what we have. So, Tim, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Terry. We can send out the slideshow if you send it to us a PDF, and we of course can send out your information to everyone who signed up for this. I know that a lot more people signed up than actually showed up, which is typical. A lot of schools are on spring break with this week. I find this very, very useful, and again, I would highly recommend it. I originally I'm a perfect example of what Terry speaks of. At least twice I have started a set up living trust and never bothered to fund it. And the cost that I paid for what I didn't complete was a lot higher than what Terry is suggesting. And, from everything I can see, I just highly recommend that if you're interested, you reach out to him and do what I did. How does he seek clients from other states? From what I understand, Sarai, Terry has clients all over the United States. And he particularly said that California is one of his favorites because the tax laws are so high there. The bottom line is, from what I understand, he can do this for anyone who's an American citizen. Not sure about anyone outside the United States, but an American definitely.
Yeah, I see some questions here. Okay. One is we're basically a virtual company. We set up that way because we do these, and we've got clients all over the state. I mean, I got a referral from Tampa. I got another one from Mississippi this week. We got a lot of people up north in Pennsylvania, California, Texas. So yeah, we are basically a virtual company. Okay. Let me see. There's a great resources center.
Well, I don't see anything else that's come in so far. One of the things that I've mentioned on the chat is that you also, for some of your clients, you're really helpful in terms of tax planning. And while not everyone may need that, perhaps you could explain who typically would approach your company, Zebulon, for that kind of help, and how do you help them?
Yeah, what happens is that, again, our company is called Tax and Wealth. I do a lot of work with the client. What usually happens is we have an interview, we have a phone call, and I determine how we can help you and, what your needs are. And then from there, if I see, like the doctor I talked to with yesterday, I'm sorry, the business owner that was one of your owners of the school system. Well, she's not had any planning doing. She's making a pretty good bit of money, and she owned a building that's never had anything done, and so I laid out 4 different things for her that we're going to help her with that cuts her taxes and, and saves her money down the road. So it really, everything's off the interview, Tim. Let's just talk, and you may not be in a high tax bracket, but you may have some money in an old, an IRA or something that we could convert to Roth IRAs. I have programs, all different kinds of programs, especially. I have some programs. We do tax mitigation, been using them for 20 plus years. You put in, $70,000, I can give you a $350,000 deduction. Or you put in 100, give you $500 deductions. We got all kinds of programs. We've got, if you're the business owner, we can do, all different kind of things now. So it's really a function, not necessarily your size. I'll give you an example. My largest client makes $7 million a year. My smallest client makes about 130, and we set him up and saved about $9,000 in taxes. And so we're in the whole thing. So it doesn't matter to us. If you need help, we'd love to talk with you. I talked to a lady the other day that, she's just getting started. I gave her some advice, and I said, okay, this is, when you do this, then let's get back together. And it'll probably be another year before I hear from her. But I gave her advice on how to set herself up. I'm amazed at when I talk to clients, whoever's helping with their taxes. The gentleman I had yesterday, he has skipped out and the CPA cost him about $25,000 a year because they just didn't change his corporate structure. So everything is off the interview. So that's how we help, just like what I did with you and others. Let's just talk. See how we can help you. It doesn't cost, it's free, and then people ask, how do we get paid? What we do is, if we create a tax deduction for you that you did not have before, we just charge 1%. So if we create a $300,000 deduction for you, we just charge 1%, $3,000. If we put you into some sort of retirement type plan, one of our things is that we require through Schwab that we manage that money for about a fee of 1.25%. So we think our fees are very reasonable. Okay, and then again, you saw the fee that we've cut structured, for the estate plan. And again, like you said, Tim, this was half of what you were, and that didn't include any funding. So we are funding everything.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think your fee, if I remember, what, 2,700?
Yes, sir.
It is very, very reasonable. And for those of you who are short on cash, he did take credit card. The bottom line is, I have found you to be very, very helpful, and I can certainly, on a personal level, I can highly recommend it. And knowing what I know, I wish I had done this years ago. So I hope today was helpful, first off, to all of you who are with us in person right now. And I hope all of you who see this later will reach out to Terry Holman at Zebulon, Zebulon, advisory.com. And I've got to say that Terry and his family have been very gracious and very easy to work with. And I really appreciate you, Terry.
All right. Thank you for allowing us to come in. Thank you, everyone. If we can help you in any way or answer any questions, let us know. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. We will see you next week.